Welcome to Authentic Educators, a podcast by teachers for teachers about best lessons, favorite classroom moments, and strategies you can use today. William James, a pioneer of American philosophy and psychology, once said, "We don't laugh because we're happy. We are happy because we laugh." Dave and I are neither prominent philosophers or psychologists, yet we firmly believe that happy students learn to the best of their abilities. This week's conversation with our former colleague, Jeff Dubin, focuses on how humor in a classroom improves the experience for everyone. At this point in his career, Jeff doesn't have a fancy Netflix special, but what he does have is an uncanny ability to bring levity into his math classroom. I had the pleasure of observing him teach on multiple occasions, and each time I did, I saw students diligently working and happily engaged with the material. Jeff's strategies are insightful and enlightening and worthy of a listen for teachers of all subjects and grade levels. This weekend, well, you're going to cut that. Really excited to have my former colleague and close friend, Jeff Dubin, on with us here on Authentic Educators. And I had the privilege at my old school to witness his teaching on a number of occasions, even though I was an English teacher and he was a math teacher, where we operated a peer coaching part of our observational track. And that itself is a really exciting concept that listeners out there, I hope you have some form of in your school. And every single time I was in Jeff's class, I found myself laughing, chuckling to myself. And the way that Jeff uses humor to create a positive atmosphere in his classroom with his students is something that I walked away thinking, how can I do that more himself? So thanks, Jeff, for joining us. We're really excited to hear your insights and how maybe our listeners can, learn from the fun experiences you've had in your classroom.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be on here and talk about this. Go
So
ahead.
what? There you go. Right there's the
Good
comedic
night.
pause right there. Yeah, there you go. There
I
you
was gonna
go.
say, there's nothing worse than talking about humor because do you feel like an inherent urge? Do you like feel like, oh, I have to be the class clown now that we're talking about this? Do you feel that pressure right now?
Were you the class clown when you were a student, Jeff, or no?
No, I was
No.
the only time I was a class clown was in French class, where I felt like I could be a knucklehead for some reason. And because you're kind of acting in French and you had to act out scenes and you had to talk in French and I kind of
Si
went
vous
off
played.
script a little bit and I felt comfortable enough, I guess either I felt comfortable enough with the teacher or the topic that I was able to be a goofball. And I still did well in the class.
Right.
But it was something that I enjoyed.
So when you think about being the teacher, right, a classroom that has 25 just off the wall knuckleheads is going to be a disaster. Yet I found witnessing you teach on many occasions, there being genuine. I mean, sometimes you laughed yourself, to be fair, but then I would I would watch because I was just observing. I would see other kids kind of like maybe not vocalize that laughter, but I saw them chuckling into themselves. And I'm thinking, if you're in a math class, not every student loves math, that if you could have those authentic, just human moments, that has to bring a positive energy into the classroom. What is your approach and how do you do it?
So, a couple of ground rules. And, the first thing is I like to make fun of myself. And you can't, definitely can't make fun of other students. You can't make fun or be sarcastic. Using sarcasm with students as the butt of the joke is an absolute out of bounds. Can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because kids, especially at that age, they take it to heart, and it just is going to go south really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I make fun of myself, self-deprecating humor. I make fun of my mother-in-law quite a bit. Um, you know, For the math nerds out there, dividing by zero is the second worst thing you could ever do in your entire life.
Oh yeah, what's the first?
Having your mother-in-law move in with you. And
Oh,
that always usually at the beginning, first couple of days, that's a good, groundbreaker. Um, but it's, using humor, you can't do it 24/7. If you
right.
do that, then you're not going to get any math done,
Hmm.
and or whatever topic you're working on, it's just not going to get done. But a lot of times it might be just, a quick witty one-liner or really stupid dad jokes that are, corny. Um, and when kids say, like, are you serious? And I say, no, I'm Mr. Dubin. And,
That's so stupid.
it's so dumb.
That's so dumb.
It's so ridiculous.
Right.
It's the kind of thing that, the kids chuckle about. And, nerdy math jokes like, what's 3Q plus 7Q? And they,
3Q plus 7, 10Q.
you're welcome. And, it's corny stuff that, it takes a second. Half the class doesn't even get it.
Which actually makes it better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in my like honors class, they what are you talking about? And so they have to think about it. But stuff that they have to think about, then they're kind of more engaged and they're waiting for the next kind of one-liner to show
Right.
up, and then they're kind of maybe a little bit more invested in the class because, they're waiting for the next witty kind of thing to happen.
Is that something that you lean into from Jump Street, or is it do you kind of put the more serious face on for a couple days before you take away and the mask of hey, I'm the serious person all the time?
Yeah, that is a hard dynamic to play with. I mean, but yeah, I'm serious for the first couple days, and then I kind of start to let out, a couple of, one-liners or just, a lot of,
I just love the mother-in-law one. Like I'm thinking my wife and I are in the process of watching Big Bang Theory, like the whole thing. And you mentioned mother-in-law, and I just think of like the mother character that Howard had. If any, audience members out there know Wolowitz's mom, who would just never appear on screen and just scream from the. And so I'm just thinking that like if Dubin's if Dubin's mother-in-law is constantly coming up in conversation, I feel like that's that recurring thread that you can kind of pull throughout the year, and the kids, I would imagine, are able to appreciate that side of you.
they do. Um, but you know, when you go down that road of using humor, you almost come across as being two-faced. Like, okay, when is he being serious? When is he being,
Mm,
funny? And when is he joking? And it can be a tough line to walk because,
right.
not everyone's comfortable with that. And
How do
it,
you approach that, right? Because I know that there have been times where you get frustrated with students and you can't be Mr. Haha at that moment. Is there anything that you do to cue the students that it's no, this is serious and I can't be, you know, 10 cueing them?
there are times when I have to say, I'm being serious here.
Hmm.
And I gotta front load it. And sometimes I'm saying, or I'll say something and they're not sure if I'm joking or not. And
Hmm.
um, sometimes that dynamic is interesting just to see how it plays out and how they react and
Right.
what do they roll with. And there are times where I have to clear it up and say, hey, I'm being serious here. This is what's happening, yada yada yada.
I think that though that's an important thing for the kids to think about because when you're in life right? You're a high school teacher. Obviously, the audience would be different if you were in middle school or elementary school, but in life, you have to read people, right? You have to know when somebody's not messing around. Like I see it in the hallways with my middle school students. It
Hmm.
goes from, hey, they're just shoving around with each other, pushing around, where you never know when you're going to run into a human being who has a trigger, has an off, an angry switch, and you can't just keep going, going, going. So I feel like as a student in your classroom, to be able to read you as the teacher, it's not a math skill, but it's an implicit life skill
But
of,
it's, socialization, and you got to figure out, in the age of, phones and AI, being a human being and reading other people's tells and what's funny and laughing and, enjoying yourself is important, but knowing and understanding what's happening with people without a phone present,
mhm,
that's a skill that's diminishing.
right. I remember being in your classroom and there was we're doing math, we're learning, we're growing. I remember you did a lot of, sitting next to your partner, activities, but there was always this kind of like, and maybe this was me for myself, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I sensed it every time I was in your room. This sort of like, when's he gonna mention his mother-in-law? When's he gonna make fun of himself? When's he gonna talk about his age or whatever? And there was this almost this palpable excitement, might be too strong of a word, because at the end of the day, right, they're in school and some of them don't like that, but it was like they didn't know what was going to happen. And I think that keeping them on edge was a very positive thing in terms of keeping your engagement high.
Yeah, they pay for the whole seat, but they only need the edge. And you want to, keep them guessing, keep them on their toes,
Right,
not knowing 100% what's going to happen next.
right.
And, sometimes life is unpredictable
Yeah,
and, it's fun to laugh at yourself.
we
Jeff,
were, go ahead,
you
Dave.
said a phrase, I forget if it was before we were recording or not, but you mentioned sometimes joke when you're making jokes, you'd go horizontally. Do you mean like, did you mean like you double down on it or play into the silliness or absurdity of things? What did you mean by that?
So, sometimes, if the class is working on something and, um, for whatever reason, the lesson's not going 100%, things, fail, um, e- taking the class sideways, um, you know, disrupt it with a little bit of humor and then, okay, let's reset, let's try this differently
Mm,
and tackle it again, just as a way to break it up. This isn't working. Let's
Yeah.
trash it and then start over.
I
Um,
actually like the like meta. I don't know how you talk about that, but if there's like the meta self-deprecating comedy or commentary about that, that could actually be pretty funny too. And it's really human and owning a mistake, being like, you know what, this didn't go how I planned, or like that type of commentary actually is probably even good, like good modeling too, because you're being honest and accountable and like modeling in front of them, like, all right, sometimes teachers don't have the best idea or don't things don't pan out how they expect, and that's like that's again goes back to like that's such a human thing and a human experience, and I feel like teachers like letting the guard down, whether it is showing a mistake or being silly and making fun of themselves, is a thing that kids need so that they're not having such like a robotic
right.
experience.
yeah, we're not perfect. We're not robots. It's important to, not know an answer,
Yeah. And
to fail, to, get back up and, try all over again.
can I ask another question? I love your ground rules. I subscribe so hard to the like no sarcasm because there's just the threat of it is to me, it's just not worth it. I'm always uncomfortable when I'm around teachers who are like meanly sarcastic to kids. I'm like, that's
Yeah, ugh,
not a good shtick.
right.
I love that, and I love the other rule of making fun of yourself. Any other rules you have, like implicitly, you know?
Um, not to do harm to anybody. I mean, it's, you know, I like what I do. I like continuing to do it.
Hmm.
I feel terrible for the kids that have me more than once because I have a limited range of material
Yeah.
and it gets repeated.
Yeah.
Um, but it's happened. I've had one student actually for all 4 years of high school once.
Oh man.
Um, but going back to Dave's question, the ground rules is um, not to do harm to anybody, um, and to not take myself too seriously.
Yeah.
And I think those are the important ones. And everything else I kind of make fun of. I make fun of my own writing and chicken scratch and not being able to read myself. I make
Yeah, it's real
mistakes.
bad. I remember it's real bad. Your handwriting, awful.
My writing?
Yeah, yeah. I could never read it.
Okay, well, this podcast is going to end real fast.
No, but like I just you're our
Okay,
like 28th
thank
episode
you.
or something, 28th episode, and I've enjoyed our other episodes that we've had, but like I haven't, and now I know you and we've had a relationship for a long time, and if you were just a random guest that I hadn't met before, maybe it's different, but just the idea of like as a human being when you can be with other people and chuckle, whether it's a groan laugh, a sincere laugh, like I had um today in class, we're reading a chapter aloud, and the way that the female character who's 16 was described was such that it was clear that the boys were interested in her, and so I wanted to make sure that the kids understood that it wasn't like she is very attractive, like it was implied. And so I said, what does this mean? And the kid said, oh God, I'm gonna be so upset that I forget the exact phrasing, but it was something like she's hella fine, or it was some like slightly, it wasn't the F word, like it wasn't an egregious curse, but it caught me and my co-teacher Jen just completely off guard, and she was just like legitimately belly laughing, and I had like the class was like looking around like, is he gonna get yelled at? And so I'm like giggling and laughing as he said this slightly inappropriate thing to describe this character. And I said, hey everybody, no, right? No. But then I pointed out, but like, but yes, like, yeah, exactly. And that moment of levity in what is a somewhat challenging text to read, it's just such a bonding moment. And so
It
sometimes
is bonding, and that's
right,
pretty much the definition of what humor is,
right.
using or saying something at an unexpected moment,
Mm-hmm.
or saying something in a way that's not expected,
Hmm.
Right.
or just that little thing. And it is, it does set up a camaraderie, like we're all in
Mm-hmm.
this together, and it sets up that bonding kind of feeling, like, we're all experiencing this together.
Right.
It's a long 88 minutes of math. And, for a lot of people, that's not their number one favorite thing in the world.
Right.
And, trying to break up that monotony with humor, I think it helps.
Yeah.
It
We
definitely helps.
we were discussing before we recorded today how on the one hand I'm so excited for this episode and I've enjoyed it so much, but on the other hand, if you don't have that intrinsic comedic bone in you, right? So if you're a listener, you're like, wow, humor's not my thing. I don't think that listening to this episode is going to pull the magic over you and make you the next Jerry Seinfeld. But I think something that I've been pondering as we've discussed is, you are a fun person to be around, right? And when you're with adults, it's obviously different than when you're with kids, but like that through line of you being funny and silly and goofy is a positive trait for you.
Yeah.
And I think that for a listener out there who might not have that funny in them, that idea of like of being your authentic self. Obviously, I'm punning on our podcast, right? Authentic educators, but like being you, I think is so important, whatever that you is. Um,
Yeah. And humor is it's a big part of me. As a kid, I was always um listening. There were albums that we had around the house, old George Carlin and um yeah, back before the stuff hit the fan, Bill Cosby records,
mhm,
a lot of those elements were big in my house, and humor was always a part of it. And
right,
you can't be someone that you're not, and
correct.
you can't force humor to on someone, and you can't force someone to be funny. You can try, and maybe you try it, maybe you fail, maybe it bombs, and maybe it doesn't. You don't know.
Hmm.
And I've told enough jokes, and I kind of use the shotgun method of humor where, some stuff misses and some stuff hits.
I love
And
the gun analogy. That's great.
yeah,
That's good. We should do more of those.
thank you. I will not be asked back on this podcast.
No, but I
But
mean that's right. Like it works and it doesn't work,
you know,
right?
it's like photography. You take a million shots, and hopefully one of them comes out really good.
Right.
But you try, and sometimes you're in the middle of class, and your voice cracks. It
Oh,
happens.
yeah, yeah.
And I always
Puberty's the
try.
worst.
I I jump into it, and I always, if it cracks, I have to correct myself, and then I go into my real deep professional voice that, oh, so
Yeah,
but so can you try it? Yes. And are you gonna hit a home run every time? No, you're not, and that's okay too.
yeah. Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I miss working with you. And hopefully listeners out there, maybe you got a chuckle. Um, it's been wonderful. Give it a go, give it a try. Don't be afraid to embarrass yourself. Don't be afraid to um, have something that doesn't stick, right? And like Jeff said, maybe it will, maybe it won't. We don't know. Any final remarks, Dave, Jeff, before we wrap it up?
I just want to say thank you for having me on. I'll be here all week, and don't forget to tip your waitresses.
With that, it's been another episode of Authentic Educators, a podcast by teachers for teachers about best lessons, favorite classroom moments, and humor you may or may not be able to implement today. We'll talk to you next time. So, in an auth
Back, baby. We're
he's
back.
back. He's back. We forgot a key ingredient of the humor concept that can make your teaching a better experience. Jeff, what do you do?
So one thing that I like to do is make fun of other teachers, and that students eat that up. They anytime they what? Mr. Wills doesn't do this, or so and so never went to college. I mean, those little kind of things, and then they go back to their teacher and they say, "Oh, Mr. Dubin said this about you." Yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah.
if you get the other teacher to play their part, then you can kind of feed off of each other, and it makes it, okay, now we're all part of it, and so, oh, they don't like you, and they think you're the worst person ever, and you're not friends with that person? No, no, I'm not friends with anybody. But
Audience, Jeff,
that
go ahead.
dynamic of uh, feeding off of other teachers and having the students buy into that and be a part of it, and that 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 is comedic gold in the
Uh,
classroom.
Audience members, Jeff told us a quick story about how a colleague of his that he knew for about a year only called him ever Dubin, and he forgot
Oh,
his
you're gonna
for.
ruin it. No, I got to tell the
All right,
story. Come on. So,
I have a question
so
about it though.
this guy is in my classroom. He was a floating teacher. He went from classroom to classroom, and he always called me Dubin and Dubin this and Dubin that. And a full year goes by, and then we're at a tailgate the next year, and he might have had a root beer or two there, and he was too embarrassed. He got his girlfriend to come up to me and ask, "Hey, Kevin doesn't know your first name." So I told the young lady that my name was Ruben. So for the for the next 24 hours, he was calling me Ruben Dubin. Whenever he would see me, he would yell at the game, "Ruben Dubin!"
That's crazy.
Do you tell the students this? Like
Oh, I
it's
tell the
some.
students
Oh,
that
you tell the
story.
student that. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I
So
relay that story. And
those moments outside of school that are just amazing. Obviously, you have to sanitize for, your audience, but the fact that you have students at your school thinking that this other teacher called you Ruben Dubin, that's I kind of wish your name was Ruben, to be honest. That'd be a
I do
pretty
not.
epic name.
That
Yeah.
that that would be, yeah, no. I would probably be doing something else if that were the case.